All right, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning from wherever you're watching in the world. My name is Chris Cato. You're watching the Backmarkers F1 show, free practice 2 watch along live stream for the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So glad you guys could join us here on the stream. We're going to be with you for the next hour or so, doing a casual watch along and commentary for the FP2 action in Jeddah. And as you can see, very simple setup here. We got on the left-hand side of your screen the live timing of the latest laps, tires being used, drivers on fastest laps, speed traps, things like that. And on the right-hand side of your screen, we've got the driver tracker and also telemetry. So if you're out there watching and you've got your favorite driver and you want to see their telemetry up on the screen, drop a chat on the right-hand side of your screen and I will right away try and get your driver up on the screen. Of course, guys, if you are watching, give this live stream a like. Also, share it if you enjoy what you're watching. Drop a super chat in the chat if you so wish to as well. But just in general, let me know where you're watching from. Come and say hello. I'm solo here for the next hour, and of course, it's going to help if I get a lot of questions and commentary as well. So don't be shy, and I'll be keeping my eye out on the chat as well as everything going on the track. So let's take a look at the track action for now. Pretty busy as we get going here for an FP2. It's about kind of dawn around the circuit at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. We're about to get darkness here in a couple of minutes' time. We have, of course, had already one free practice session earlier today. Not so representative for this circuit, mostly in particular because, of course, qualifying and the race is at night, and FP1 was during the day. But it was an interesting FP1 nonetheless, with Pierre Gasly going quickest. We had two Williams in the top 10. Red Bull struggling once again with Tsunoda and Verstappen outside of the top 5. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc looked pretty decent though in his Ferrari, so they seem to be going a little bit better than they have been in the last couple of weekends. But this is the session that really counts, guys. We're going to be getting our race simulations and our qualifying simulations done in this session, so we're going to try and follow along as closely as we can. But before we continue to follow the on-track action, I wanted to talk about some updates, because a lot of teams have actually brought updates to this final round of the triple header here, and I think that it's going to be interesting to go through all of the team's updates here. So let's start firstly with Ferrari. We're just focusing on them, and this is coming from the FIA, so I'm going to just read it word for word here. Quote saying, Ferrari focused on the rear and beam wings for high-speed Jeddah, with a shorter cord on the top flap of the rear wing and single-element beam wing. While new to the SF25, the wings are carryovers from the low downforce events of 2024. So interesting. They're also joining a couple of other teams who are using some 2024 parts on this year's car. McLaren also got some updates. They bring a reshaped diffuser. The new element is designed to improve overall flow conditioning and aerodynamic performance. The championship leaders have also brought a new rear wing brake duct winglet to improve flow. That's very interesting because McLaren have a very intricate and effective brake cooling system that seems to be really helping them manage rear tire temperatures and just tire temperatures in general, which has been helping them with their absolutely superb tire management so far in this 2025 season. Moving on to some other teams, we've got Red Bull as well, who've brought some updates after making changes to the engine cover in the last two races. Red Bull again revised the Coke, which means the Coke bottle at the rear of the car, with an enlarged exit to meet the demands of the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. The team has also revised beam wing to suit the low downforce requirements of Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk a little bit more about what types of downforce and speed requirements for this track a little bit later. Racing Bulls matched their rivals with lower downforce rear and beam wings to suit high-speed Jeddah, but the Italian squad has also brought a revised circuit-specific front wing to reduce drag. So the sister team also bringing some further updates to reduce drag. And the final teams here, we've got Aston Martin. They brought a circuit-specific rear wing. So it's a less aggressive wing flap. Is designed to suit the load characteristics of this high-speed track. Sauber have also brought newly designed rear and beam wings to Jeddah to suit the low downforce track, and also a new front wing with a smaller flap to reduce load. They've also got a new floor aimed at efficient downforce gain. Haas as well, another team that's also using 2024 parts. They brought a lower downforce rear and beam wings to Jeddah. They're carryovers from last year's VF24, and they're suited to the demands of this high-speed track. So that's the summary of all the updates of the teams so far. It's quite a lot, and I'm actually a little bit surprised at how many have brought updates, considering this is the final round of a very busy triple header. But there you go. The endless push for performance never stops in the world of Formula One. So although this circuit is a lot of high-speed corners and also a lot of big straights as well with DRS zones, it is lower downforce, though. It is not as demanding as Suzuka, for example. It's not as stressful on the tires as Sector 1 for Suzuka, but there are a lot of high-speed and medium-speed corners on this circuit. Only a couple of low speeds. We have, for example, the Turn 1, of course, the little Mickey Mouse chicane, the final corner at Turn 27, and then, of course, Turn 13, which isn't necessarily a slow-speed corner. It is a banked medium-speed corner where drivers are carrying a lot of speed, and the minimum speed through that corner is actually quite high. So this circuit is going to really favor teams that can bring a low drag and drag efficient setup, and you're seeing a lot of teams go with similar rear wing setups to what they did maybe in Suzuka and also last week in Bahrain. So early running so far, we're about 10, almost a little bit 6 minutes into the session. Max Verstappen's got the fastest time so far with the 29.8. He's currently on the medium tire with his teammate Yuki Tsunoda right behind him in P2. So maybe let's join here, and we're going to try and get some telemetry up with the drivers. If you're new to the streams, and if you haven't joined us last week in Bahrain, or if you didn't join us for preseason testing, you're going to get a look at what the live timing looks like. It's pretty interesting to follow the drivers while they're on a hot lap. We don't usually see that on the broadcast. Let me just get this going because it sometimes freezes for you. Track temperature 38 degrees, so it's still pretty hot, but the track temperatures will be falling as darkness gets over the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. Air temperature 29 degrees. Track temp was up in the 40s this morning. We got a team radio.
Yep, Sabo did a great job there.
So yeah, that was Oscar Piastri just complaining of the Sauber as he was getting out in the pit lane. That was at the beginning of the session. And the Sauber mechanics actually had to pull, I believe it was Bortoleto, they had to actually pull him back so that he could make the turn, such as the poor steering quality of the Formula One cars.
So there are 20 cars on track. I overtook 26 on this lap.
Classic Fernando Alonso banter on the team radio. It is a very busy track out there. I'll try to get the driver tracker unfrozen there. And this is actually the second longest circuit on the Formula One calendar behind Spa. But regardless, teams still do, or excuse me, drivers still end up tripping over each other, trying to find space for a lap, because you definitely do not want to be in the turbulent air behind a car at this circuit. Alright, so let's get some telemetry going here. We're going to pick a driver, and we're going to follow him through a lap of the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. Let's pick with Max Verstappen, P3 currently in the driver standings. And he's just rounding out here a lap. He's currently... Oh. We've got, sorry, I've got team radio coming in here from somewhere else again. Ooh, and we've got, that looks like Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll's just had a moment in, yeah, the first corner there, turn 1. Was a big lockup. Let's see if we can put his telemetry on board here. So if you guys are watching on the F1 TV feed, but if you're not watching, I'll describe to you what happened. It looks like Lance Stroll had a pretty big lockup into turn 1. We're going to get a replay here soon to see what's going to happen. Oh, he had a pretty much a 360 spin here. It wasn't a lockup at the front, but it looks like a rear lockup, which essentially is basically kind of like pulling the handbrake on your road car. So he was really lucky, really lucky to not end up in the barriers there. And unfortunately for him, he'll be able to continue. I think he'll have to box. Team radio.
Yeah, copy.
So that was Albon there complaining about traffic again. That's in the middle sector, which is really the highest speed section on the track. So we're going to see a lot of that. We saw it even in FP1. But so Lance Stroll, really the first driver to have a big moment so far in this session. But he is okay. Car is okay other than the tires, and he will continue. We're currently following along with Max Verstappen on the RB21. 4 laps so far on this medium tire. Now let's talk about tires here, guys, because we got something interesting for this race weekend. The fact that Pirelli have decided to go a step softer than they have in the previous 2 rounds of this triple header, and also step softer compared to what they did here at the 2024 race. So this weekend we've got the C3, the C4, and the C5 tire. And this should be interesting, and the reason why the FIA and Pirelli have decided to do this is because they're trying to encourage a more exciting race with a variety of different strategies. So the last 4 Grand Prix here, the one stop has really dominated, because this is kind of in the medium range of tire stress. It's not really a tire eater. The surface is fairly smooth, and so therefore we don't really see a high degradation race. Therefore, Pirelli have decided to go with step softer in the hopes that we're going to get a more interesting race strategy, which in turn will make the race more exciting. And last year, for example, every driver but Valtteri Bottas did the race on a one-stop, basically starting on the medium, then switching to the hard. We're going to see what the strategies are going to be like this season, because in FP1, for an example, we didn't have any drivers running the medium tire, or excuse me, the hard tire, which is the white sidewall. So we'll see if that is a preferred race tire. Certainly wasn't last weekend, but we'll see if any of the drivers go for it this weekend. So again, guys, if you're watching out there, I appreciate you guys following along on the stream here. Glad to have you along. If you have a favorite driver out there and you want to see their telemetry, drop it in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen or below your screen, and I will put it up for you almost right away. We're currently following Lewis Hamilton, who looks to be on a cool lap. He is 5 laps into his stint on that medium tire, currently sitting P6, a best time of a 1:29.9, 0.6 off the pace, just set by Lando Norris, McLaren 1-2, early days here in FP2. We've got 45, coming up on 45 minutes left in this session, so certainly plenty of time. Let me just catch up on the time here. So plenty of time to go here. Drivers still stretching their legs here early on. Looks like mostly the long runs here so far in this session. George Russell going 6th fastest, a 1:29.7 there. That's also on the medium tire. Mercedes, of course, looking very good as of late. They had a great race in Bahrain, did George Russell, despite all the troubles of his car, but still pulled it over the line for a P2 and a great podium finish, considering all the issues that he had. It was quite honestly one of the most impressive races he's had in his career, and I think that this track will suit Mercedes much better than Bahrain did, so they should be strong here once again. And we got a replay of Lando Norris and a team radio.
Why does no one use radios at all? Yeah, I got blocked by the Red Bull. Completely in the way.
Hey, that was Verstappen who blocked you.
Yeah, so that was Norris complaining there of the Red Bull of Verstappen as he was getting blocked there in the second sector. And it's going to be a problem here, guys. Like I said, one of the longest circuits on the calendar, but still, traffic is still a huge issue. And here, it is quite dangerous because it's very high speed, a lot of walls around, a lot of the corner apexes are actually blind until you get there, so you do not want to rock up to a corner and have a car sitting there. As we just see a replay of the Alpine coming into the final corner, and you've got two Haas's essentially parked on the apex of the corner. And I'm not sure who that was, but that Alpine made contact with the wall at the exit of the final corner at turn 27. So that was a pretty decent hit, but it looks like all is okay with the Alpine, who, by the way, showed a great turn of pace in this morning's FP1 session. If you guys didn't see, Pierre Gasly went quickest, and I know it is an FP1, there's not much to read into it, but nonetheless, it was still pretty impressive considering this shouldn't typically be an Alpine strong suit with the engine deficit that they have. But this isn't so much a power-sensitive circuit as it is really a drag-sensitive circuit. So if you have a car that has low drag, you'll be able to get some good performance around here. Lando Norris currently on a good lap here. We're following him on the telemetry here. Purple in the first sector. Purple also in the middle sector. So he's pushing on pretty good right now. Currently McLaren sitting 1-2. And this lap should put Norris at the top of the timesheets. Again, making a time quicker than what his originally had. And let's see where it's going to put him. So Norris crossing the line. Actually doesn't go quicker than his original time. He lost 2/10 in the final sector. So still stays quickest at the moment, but only by... Oh, he's been usurped by his teammate, Oscar Piastri, who just crossed the line and goes faster on a 129.1. So about a 10th quicker than his teammate Lando Norris. And we can see the teammate comparison here between the two McLaren drivers. Piastri about a tenth, almost a 10th down in that middle sector. So, but made up for it elsewhere in the final sector is where he found his time. Of course, the two McLaren drivers, 1 and 2 in the Drivers' Championship. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We got another radio.
Let's check the brakes. We're looking at it now.
So that's Pierre Gasly in the Alpine complaining of brake problems. And yeah, as I was saying, of course, the two McLaren, it seems like the championship fight will be between the two of them, at least for this early part of the season. And Oscar Piastri winning more races so far compared to his teammate, Lando Norris. So, and also keep in mind, guys, that this circuit is actually one that Oscar Piastri usually goes pretty strong at. He's 2-0 so far against Lando Norris in his qualifying and race head-to-head at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. So this should be another good weekend here for Piastri, I think. One thing I am looking forward to and watching this weekend is that I think other teams will have a little bit more of a shot against McLaren than we did in Bahrain, for an example. As you see right now, Leclerc currently sitting P1 with a 129.0. Ferrari looking a little bit stronger. They're able to run the car a little bit lower to the ground, which should unlock a little bit more performance. But so will the other teams. And so I think these other teams should rock up alongside McLaren. It will be a little bit closer. And again, I think qualifying is going to be the main focus. Every race so far in 2025 has been won by the pole sitter. So even though you can overtake at this track, there are a lot of DRS zones. There's a lot of straights and even slower speed corners where you can send a dive bomb down the inside. Regardless, I think that trend of pole position winning the race every year might continue here. So pole ever so important even at this circuit. And so far, we've only seen one driver, Liam Lawson, there in the Racing Bulls. He strapped on a set of softs, that C5 tire, and he's currently in P4. But he went quite early. And a lot of teams still kind of doing long runs here to open up in the first 20 minutes of this session. Let's see. Lap count so far. We got Charles Leclerc currently sitting in P1. He's done 8 laps on that medium tire. He's actually on a second set. It looks like that was an old set of mediums. Oscar Piastri, he's done 8 laps also on his set of mediums, as well as Lando Norris. Yuki Tsunoda's done 8 laps on his medium tires. And then Liam Lawson, the lone driver so far on that soft tire. And Alex Albon in the Williams, the only driver so far to test out those mediums, to test out those hards, which is the C3. And we didn't see any driver running that this morning either. But Alex Albon currently running on that tire. And sometimes you see it's an allocation thing as well. It depends on how the teams decide to use the tire allocation, which means that they won't run a tire in FP2, but then they will save it for the race. So it's a bit of an unknown going into the race. But I don't think necessarily that soft tire is going to be the race tire. I think we're still probably going to see a medium to hard strategy, but we'll see. And as you see on your screen at the moment, only 3 drivers on track, the 2 Mercedes and Yuki Tsunoda of Red Bull. So drivers coming into the pits, and they're going to strap on a set of soft tires in a few moments' time and go for their qualifying sims. Maybe just a little bit of a debrief, maybe a setup change request from the drivers if they have some. And then they'll be out on the track in a moment's time. So I'm going to let the stream breathe for about a 30 seconds to a minute here while I get a little bit of refreshment, and you guys can enjoy the live sounds from the circuit here, from the Jeddah Corniche Circuit in Saudi Arabia. All right, back online here. Welcome, Grace. Just seeing your comment there. I'm not sure if I missed it in the last couple of minutes or so, but I've just reloaded my other screen here, so I'm able to see your chat. Thanks for joining again for this week. Great to have you back. And yes, I will be definitely putting those drivers up on the screens. As you can see, drivers starting to make their way out on track for their qualifying sims. We got Verstappen out there, the 2 Williams, Sainz and Albon. And the 2 Mercedes still out on track, but I do believe they are running the medium tire. Oh, Russell is on the soft currently. Okay, let's see if we can join Russell's lap here. And, okay, well, we missed Russell's flying lap, but Russell has gotten quickest so far with the 1:28.9. But, of course, he was the first of the big boys to go out on the softer tire. Oh, got to open this here. There was the problem. All right, who else do we got coming up here? Okay, live feed is currently showing Carlos Sainz. Let's follow along here with Carlos Sainz as he finishes his lap, a 32.4 in the first sector. And most drivers now coming out. Leclerc has just left the pit lane as well on a set of softs, so he's going to be going for his qualifying sim in just a moment. Another team radio.
Copy that.
Wow, interesting. So George Russell complaining of bouncing or porpoising in the high-speed corners there. last year into this regulation. Interesting that some teams still complaining about that porpoising issue. So Sainz DRS open there, and wow, good lap there from Carlos Sainz. He goes quickest so far. Just ahead there of George Russell. This on-screen telemetry is a little bit ahead of the live feed there, so you might get a little bit of a spoiler, but an excellent lap there from Carlos Sainz, a 128.9, 3/100ths of a second quicker than George Russell. Max Verstappen also on a flying lap here. He's gone purple in the first sector, so Max Verstappen flying currently at the moment. He's got an open track ahead of him. He's got Charles Leclerc behind, so we're going to jump on board as well with Charles Leclerc at the same time and just get a comparison of these two. Of course, they had an excellent battle here in 2022. I wonder if we're going to get a little bit of that this year. Verstappen, purple in the middle sector as well. He is absolutely flying on this lap and should be quickest so far of anybody. Looks like, excuse me, I think Leclerc might actually be on a outlap still at the moment, as Verstappen just on the main straight there. And Verstappen crosses the line and, of course, goes P1 with a very solid lap there, as Charles Leclerc is about to get set on his flying lap. So we're going to follow Charles Leclerc here for the next minute and a half or so. So that lap from Verstappen, a 28.5, almost 4/10 clear of Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Let's see what Charles Leclerc will be able to do here in the Ferrari. The SF25, in the hands of Leclerc at any rate, has been faster so far, or looks to be faster than Max Verstappen or any of the Red Bulls. But let's see where this lap will put Charles. And looks like Leclerc's backed out. Yeah, looks like Leclerc's backed out of this lap, actually. Not sure if he made a mistake, but we'll see if we're going to get a replay of that. But unfortunately, Leclerc will have to go again. So most drivers currently out on the track at the moment. We're currently tracking Oscar Piastri. So Piastri just rounding the final corner now, and he's going to go for his flying lap. Norris doesn't look like... Let's see. Yeah, Norris currently isn't out on the track. All right, so this will be an interesting lap here to see what Oscar Piastri can do. He is chasing Max Verstappen currently at the moment with the 28.5, the best time set by the four-time world champion. This is the first performance run here from either of the McLarens. Only Piastri at the moment out on track for McLaren. Lando Norris still in the pits. So Piastri with the 32.2 in the first sector, not quicker than Verstappen at the moment. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, as you can see there on the right-hand side of your screen in the driver tracker, but he cleared Hülkenberg. So it should be clear up ahead, as he's currently going through the middle sector at the moment. Currently purple in the middle sector, fastest of anybody. So this will be quite close here with Verstappen. DRS open. Let's see his top speed. Is he going to reach 330? No, he won't. Braking into the final corner. Hit that apex nice and early. As he goes to cross the line, and Piastri will end up the quickest so far. So Oscar Piastri goes fastest with that lap, just ahead of Max Verstappen. So a good lap there from Piastri. He had a very strong middle and final sector, and that puts him so far into the lead with a 28.43. Pretty close though. Verstappen only a 10th behind there. So I would probably say that that's not a bad time there.
Yeah, sorry. I had a bad hit exit of C4. Check the floor.
We will check.
So that's Hajar saying that he might have touched the wall there. Currently Hajar down in P11. And you can see there too the lap comparisons between Verstappen and Piastri. Lando Norris out on track currently at the moment. He's on an out lap, so we're going to pick him up in just a second here, and we're going to follow along and see where his performance run will end up. So your top three so far, Piastri, Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz. Very good lap there from Carlos Sainz. That Williams has shown excellent speed so far this weekend. I think they will be in a good spot for another points finish. As Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin also on a flyer and only good for 14th. Aston Martin still struggling for pace. We're currently following Lando Norris here in the McLaren. This is his first lap on a performance run. And we're going to be comparing him to of course, Verstappen and then his teammate as well, Piastri, who currently sits P1. So on the TV feed, they're not showing Norris on the... Oh, there we go. They just picked up Norris on the TV feed as well. Currently going through the first sector. Lando Norris purple in the first sector with a 32.0. Fastest of anybody so far. That is a very quick first sector. Let's see how the rest of the lap goes. He just cleared some traffic there, but he's got quite a few cars ahead of him. Hulkenberg, Ocon, Antonelli, and Russell that he's going to have to clear in a pretty tricky section of the track with those high-speed corners. He just passed the Sauber. A 28.0 in the middle sector, so not as quick as his teammate in the middle sector. I wonder if that might have been some of that traffic that we were just talking about, but he's about to finish the lap here. And let's see where this is going to put him. And Lando Norris crosses the line, does go quickest, a 28.34. So he only set one purple sector, which was in the first sector, but it was quite a mighty one indeed. And he ended up finishing fastest there. Not by much, though. 9/100ths of a second, so just about a 10th ahead of his teammate, Oscar Piastri, who just went out on another set of tires. And we're just going to see which ones Oscar Piastri is out on. So they're just doing a quarter analysis here on the F1 TV live feed. They're looking at turn 13, which is that banked corner. And Piastri is 7/100ths of a second faster than Max Verstappen. They're comparing him to Max Verstappen in that corner. So 7/100ths of a second faster is Oscar Piastri in turn 13. And yeah, so Piastri's done with his performance run. He just went out on another set of mediums. So very close. I mean, very close between the two teammates, but also very close with the other drivers in behind. Verstappen only 0.2 off of the McLaren, which is not bad. And quite honestly, I was expecting Verstappen to be a little bit stronger here this weekend. This circuit is a little bit more similar to Suzuka. Of course, it's quite the radical opposite of what we saw in Bahrain. Bahrain being a rear limited circuit, this being more of a front limited circuit, but of course this circuit has a lot of high-speed corners, whereas Bahrain doesn't really have any. So I think Verstappen will be more competitive here, but we're going to see just how close he can get tomorrow in qualifying. But so far, it is the two McLarens well ahead of the pack, and it looks like... so I got... looks like was wrong information. Excuse me on that one. Piastri's out on another set of the soft tires, and he is currently going for a fast lap here, so we're going to follow along with him again. I thought that he was out on another set of mediums, but he is actually out on another set of softs. So Piastri wanting to go again, which is quite interesting because usually most drivers will just go for one lap. They'll just use the one set of tires, and then they'll get on with it. But it looks like this might not be a performance run. Let's see the mini sectors here. He was purple in the mini sector at turn 13, but not a personal best in the first or the second sector. So this won't be a much of a performance run here. So currently they're showing a replay of Jack Doohan riding the curb hard there at turn 12. And of course, I do believe they are policing track limits there. Let's go on board here with Jack Doohan. Doohan, who had a pretty solid weekend in Bahrain, of course, was running in the points for most of the race. Unfortunately, didn't finish there. But I would say that he had a really competitive weekend. And he's shown glimpses of pace so far in this season. Just hasn't been able to bring it together in order to score some points or to finish in a really strong weekend. So hopefully Doohan will be able to do that here in Jeddah. Not an easy track, though, of course, for these rookies. Most of them who haven't driven here. Some of them who have in F2, but regardless, this is a pretty difficult track to come here for the first time and get up to speed. So it looks like most drivers have completed their soft tire runs. They've either gone into the pits for another set of softs, possibly maybe to try and do a long run, or for another flying lap. But we'll give it a second here, and then we'll do a rundown. We'll do a rundown of the best time so far. So what's interesting is that track temperature hasn't actually dropped that significantly from the beginning of the session. It was 38 degrees when we started at the top of the hour, and now it's only sitting at 37 degrees. So only one temperature or 1 Celsius difference track temperature. And I thought it might have dropped a couple of more degrees considering it is fully dark there, but it is still pretty hot. And it looks like Charles Leclerc currently pushing. I think this is on another set. Let's see. It looks like he's on the same set, but he's able to go for a second flying lap. And that's P4 for Charles Leclerc, 128.7. So Charles Leclerc, the lead Ferrari at the moment. So 4/10 off the pace for Leclerc, which honestly I thought he'd be a little bit closer at least to Verstappen, but even to Max Verstappen there's about a 2/10 gap. And his teammate Lewis Hamilton all the way down in 13th with the 129.3. He's a second off the pace. So Hamilton continuing to struggle so far, early days in his Ferrari career. And elsewhere on the track, Lando Norris actually went for another lap on that set of soft tires and actually managed to improve on his time there. So he goes P1, a 28.26, and about a 10th and a half up on his teammate Oscar Piastri. So looks like the drivers were able to go for another lap on that soft. Another radio.
Touch the wall with the front left.
Copy.
So that was Piastri reporting that he touched the wall, front left tire. And I mean, you can get away with that, but you don't want to try too much.
Just skim the wall.
Oh yeah, Albon definitely skimmed the wall. That was at the final corner there at the exit of 27. And let's see as we get here. Yeah, had a little bit of oversteer coming out the exit, had to correct, and then it pretty much drove him into the wall. Pretty decent whack there for Alex Albon, but he was able to continue on here. All the drivers pretty well behaved. Antonelli also brushing the wall there at the exit of 27.
Box, I cleared the wall. Exit of last corner.
Okay, copy.
There you go. So drivers testing the limits definitely, but we haven't seen any significant incidents as of yet, which is good. We obviously don't want to see those. But as the track gets more rubbered in, as drivers gain a little bit more confidence, they will start to push the limits here. But of course, FP2 isn't exactly the time to do it. You want to save the best for last when it gets to qualifying tomorrow. But a lot of drivers have brushed the wall so far, but all of them getting away with it so far. So 20 minutes to go here at this free practice 2 session. Thank you everybody for watching. My name is Chris Cato, host and creator of the Backmarkers F1 show. If you didn't know, I appreciate everybody joining me here on this Good Friday. Good Friday. Happy Easter everybody to out there if you're celebrating. I appreciate you guys spending your Friday evening or afternoon with me. If you're new to the channel and you like this live stream, give us a subscribe, like this video as well. We are going to be doing these probably almost every FP2 for this weekend, or for these races this year. And I will be getting some guests on in the next couple of races, so stay tuned for that. It should be a little bit more interesting with more people on the mic, so that will be fun. And also, if you want to check out some of our other videos, I just posted a new one a couple of days ago, a very interesting video actually, about how the tariffs in the United States, how that will affect Formula 1, but more specifically, the American Formula 1 teams like Haas and Cadillac as well. And unfortunately, politics is getting involved in every part of our lives, even in Formula 1, as much as we don't want it to. And it's very interesting, actually. So take a look at that video. You can find that on the homepage of our channel. Just click the videos section, and you'll be able to find it there. And otherwise, you should be expecting a video from me tomorrow. Post-qualifying, I will be releasing a qualifying analysis video of whoever scores pole position. Again, if you want to see what that looks like, that's also on the homepage of our channel. We've got everything laid out in a playlist. And then following the completion of every race this weekend, or every race this year, I will be putting out every driver's post-race team radio, and you can expect that about 3 to 4 hours following the checkered flag at every race this year. So stay tuned. We got a lot of great videos coming up on the Backmarkers F1 show, and I really appreciate the support out there. The most that you guys can do to support us, of course, is just to like the videos, and more importantly, just watch them. That really means a lot to me, so thank you everybody out there. So 17 minutes to go in this session. It's a McLaren 1-2, much like it's been for most of this part of the early season. Lando Norris, a 128.2, set on the C5 soft tire. He's quickest of anybody of this session. Not by much, though, about a tenth and a half quicker than his teammate. Max Verstappen then in P3, almost 3/10 off the pace with a 28.5. Charles Leclerc in 4th. Carlos Sainz for Williams in P5, a very good lap there. Yuki Tsunoda in the 2nd, Red Bull, a 128.9. Only a few 100ths off of Carlos Sainz this time, but still a decent gap to his teammate. George Russell in 7th. Pierre Gasly in 8th. Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber, quite a surprise to see him there, up in P9. And rounding out the top 10, we have the 2nd Williams of Alex Albon. That is your top 10 rundown so far. And of course, in the final 20 minutes here, we're going to have most drivers coming out on the long run. It's a pretty quiet track at the moment so far. You can see on the driver tracker there, we've only got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars out at the moment. We're going to load up the telemetry just in a minute and follow along with some of these drivers on their long runs. Carlos Sainz currently out on a long run, so we're going to follow along with him here. Let's bring up the telemetry of Carlos Sainz. So he's currently out on that medium tire, which is the C4. If you weren't with us at the beginning of the live stream, Pirelli have gone with a step softer in the tire selection. So we've had the C3, C4, and the C5. So far this weekend, we've really only seen the soft and the medium being run. We've only had Alex Albon earlier in this session who ran the hard tire. And that was it. You guys can see on the tire history there on the left-hand side of your screen, he was the only driver so far to touch that white sidewall harder compound. And I think a lot of drivers, just based on allocation, are going to be saving that for the Grand Prix. And we're hoping that with the step softer tires, we're going to get more variety in terms of the race strategies, but that's obviously yet to be determined. Max Verstappen also out on track. We're going to put his telemetry up side by side with Carlos Sainz, as Verstappen is 5 laps into his stint on that medium tire. Sainz only 2 laps in so far. And of course, this is just all gathering data for for Sunday's Grand Prix. Seeing what the degradation is going to be like, seeing how long they can stretch these stints out for. Historically at this race, a one-stop has been the way to go, but with the softer tires this year, Pirelli are expecting more chances of a 2-stop strategy, but we'll see if that is going to happen, because this is a relatively smooth surface and it's not too hard on the tires. Yes, there's a lot of high-speed corners, but it actually doesn't take out too much from the tires in comparison to a circuit like Suzuka, for example, that we were just at a few weeks ago. So I think that will be very interesting. And of course, track position almost at every circuit in Formula 1, but certainly at this one is important. You do not want to come out from a second pit stop and be stuck behind a whole lot of traffic or in a DRS train. And it's important to note when we're paying attention here to see this telemetry data from these drivers. Of course, this is live, up to the minute, what we're seeing here out on track and on your screens. You're seeing the drivers not using DRS, for an example. As you can see right now, Carlos Sainz going down the straight as well as Verstappen. They aren't using the DRS. They are lifting a few hundred meters earlier than they would on a push lap, using some of that lift and coast as well. Very gentle and easy on the throttle, maybe using a higher gear once they're on throttle, accelerating out of the slow speed corners to protect the rear tires. And that's what it's all about. Unfortunately, in modern Formula 1, these drivers aren't pushing most of the time, only really in Q1, 2, and 3. Other than that, they are pretty gentle because they are trying to save this robust and sensitive Pirelli rubber. So that's Sainz and Verstappen. Let's take a look at the 2 Ferrari boys who are out on track, the Ferrari teammates Leclerc and Hamilton. They're at different parts of the circuit here. Leclerc P4 and Hamilton in P13. Of course, Hamilton, the inaugural winner of this Grand Prix back in 2021. Who can forget that amazing race that we had? Maybe not so much amazing in terms of the on-track action, but certainly in terms of the drama that we got from that. And of course, back then, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was the second to last race of the season, and now it's moved to a permanent slot at the beginning of the year. So both Hamilton and Leclerc just started their long runs here. As you can see, only 1 lap old on that medium tire. Most of the drivers are out on track. We've only got Antonelli, Alonso, Stroll, and Bortoleto who aren't currently out on track. They're sitting in the pits. Bortoleto in the Sauber, currently with the slowest time, all the way down there in P20. But he hasn't set a time, actually. It'll be interesting to find out what happened with him. Let's see if we can jump on our social media and find out why Bortoleto hasn't set a time yet, if he's got some sort of issue. I didn't see anything on the live feed here. I've got so many screens going up, but I can't follow everything all at once. So I'm going to try and get that information for you guys. We're going to go straight to the Sauber Twitter account. Aha, okay, so here we've got the reasoning here. So the reason why Gabriel Bortoleto is not out on track, they discovered a fuel leak on his car after FP1, which they couldn't fix in time for FP2. and they're currently being investigated. So that's actually interesting. I apologize, I didn't see that at the beginning of the session. So I don't believe that he was out on track at all. So I definitely did miss that from the beginning there. So less than 10 minutes to go in the free practice 2 session here at the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. As always, these sessions just fly by. I mean, even when we were doing the live streams for testing, those were 3-4 hour sessions, but they ended up flying by just as fast as this one. So much like we expected. The two McLarens, line and stern, P1 and P2 at the moment. I would say encouraging signs if you're a Red Bull fan, because the last couple of Friday free practices, Red Bull have really struggled to find a decent balance for Max Verstappen, but it seems like they've been able to find it here. He complained in FP1 a lot about a loose rear, especially in the high-speed corners, which is what you don't want at a circuit like this. But they looks like they maybe made some changes in between the break of FP1 and FP2, and he's a lot more comfortable in that RB21 here in this evening session. Just about 0.3 off of the pace, but I would say that that's not bad, especially considering where Red Bull were last weekend. But I think that this circuit will suit their car a lot. Oh, and we've got a driver in the wall, and that's Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda is in the wall. Let's see if we can... I mean, we're not going to see much from his telemetry now. Yeah, as you can see there, and we've got a red flag. Yuki Tsunoda has crashed at the final corner there, turn 27. And that's really unfortunate. Tsunoda's had such a solid start to his Red Bull career, and that's pretty interesting because he wasn't on the soft tire. He was not on a performance run. He was out on that medium C4 tire, but somehow ended up in the wall. We're probably going to get a replay in just a moment time. If you guys are also following along on F1 TV, and we'll see what happened. Man, that's really unfortunate, especially late in the session too. The damage doesn't look huge, but nonetheless, things are going to need to be replaced on that RB21. And when you crash at a corner like that, you immediately start to think of gearbox. Will they need to change the gearbox? Will they need to change engine components as well? It's still early on in the season, so he should be able to avoid a penalty, because he should well be within his allocation. But Tsunoda, unfortunately, the first victim of the Jeddah Corniche Circuit here in 2025, he was sitting in P6, and he is okay. He got out of the car, and he's currently walking back to the pit lane. And we'll see what's going to happen. Here's the replay. Oh. Yeah, so what happened there is that if you guys aren't watching a feed, he was on a race run. You could hear even in the audio, lifted and coasted into the corner, braked really early, but he took too much of a tight angle into turn 27, and he actually hit the inside wall with his left front, which broke the tow bar, broke the suspension, and of course he was just a passenger after that, and ran right into the outside wall of turn 27. So that's quite a clumsy mistake, actually, especially on a long run there from Yuki Tsunoda. So he'll be pretty frustrated with that mistake, and I'm sure Red Bull will be as well. Here's the team radio.
Sorry, guys.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, pretty clumsy. I mean, I think in recent years we've seen drivers do that on a push lap, on a qualifying lap, but not really on a race run. He was just really trying to tighten his angle into that corner, which is the natural line of what you'd want to do, but certainly not as much as he did. And of course, it's kind of like in Monaco when you hit the inside wall of the swimming pool. After that, you've got no chance. You're just a passenger, and then you end up wrecking the car. And that's pretty much going to put a stop to this session. And with only about 5 or 6 minutes to go, it doesn't look like we're going to get any more running here today. And there you see it. I'm going to see if they're going to post a video here on my Twitter feed. I can at least show you that. But there's the damage to that car. It really just looks like the front suspension. I don't think that the rear took a big hit, so I think the gearbox and engine components should be good, but the suspension will definitely need to be changed, which, if you look at the positive sides of it, of course, at least it's not between FP3 and Q qualifying. There will be plenty of time for the mechanics to sort out that Red Bull, but never a good thing, especially around a track like this where you need the ultimate confidence. When you have an accident like that, it certainly doesn't help your mentality going into qualifying. Yeah, Lando Norris had a pretty good view of the accident there. He was the car right behind Yuki Tsunoda. And here we go. Hopefully we can avoid the YouTube copyright algorithm on this one, but you get to see the action here. So yeah, just took a really tight angle into turn 27, the final corner. And then of course after that, broken left suspension is just gone. The front wishbones, everything. And of course your steering doesn't work after that, and he's just straight into the wall. It is fairly low speed, but regardless, he just wasn't able to do anything. But very strange. I mean, as you can see, he just took such a tight angle into this corner. And you do want to be hitting, as you can see, these green curbs here. That is the apex of the corner. You do want to hit that, but that wall just came up and surprised Yuki Tsunoda. And after that, nothing he can do. And his FP2 is over. Front wing gone. Front suspension all done. Pretty clumsy move, I think you got to say, from Yuki Tsunoda. He's going to be upset at himself for that, especially on a long run. He wasn't necessarily pushing, so not what you want to see there from the Japanese driver. But a pretty anticlimactic end to the session there. Currently red flag. And of course, in a red flag scenario on these practice sessions, the clock continues to run. So like I said, guys, I don't think that we're going to get any more running today. They've got to get that car out of the way. And like I said, happened at the final corner. So it doesn't have a long way to go to get back into the pits. But nonetheless, not enough time to get the track cleared and for more drivers to come out there. So we might as well do a rundown here of the time board here, and just check out which drivers impressed us and which ones disappointed us. So after about an hour of running, the McLarens topped the timesheets. Lando Norris in P1 with a 28.2. About a tenth and a half quicker than his teammate, Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen in P3, I think he'll be pretty pleased with that. About 3/10 off the pace, but pretty good so far for Red Bull from what we've seen in these first two sessions in Saudi Arabia. 1 second, team radio.
So I've got used to this now.
And actually, just before we maybe pause on getting through all the times, we've got teams firing up the engines, and I wonder if they're going to get out here for the last minute and a half or so. Would be quite surprising, to be honest with you. But it looks like they have craned Tsunoda's Red Bull out of the way, and drivers are coming back out on the track. Okay. At the very least, maybe just for some practice starts. Yep. And we've got a green flag, so a good job for the marshals there trackside. They cleared that car pretty quickly. So drivers are coming back out onto the track. And with about 30 seconds to go, I think they're probably just going to do one lap around and then end up doing some practice starts on the grid here. So we're going to stay along for that. That should be interesting to follow the telemetry for those practice starts. And then we're going to sign off about 5 minutes after the session. So if you got any questions, you got any comments, you've got about another 10 minutes or so to drop them in the chat. And I'll gladly take a look at those. So checkered flag is out. The session is completed. Drivers still making their way around. And we should be expecting some practice starts in a moment's time here. We're going to follow along the telemetry with some of these drivers. And in the meantime, let's turn up the audio a little bit and pretend like we're trackside at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit. It got pretty interesting there at the end. Actually, some of the drivers almost looked like they were going racing there, heading into the final corner. So that's it. Checkered flag has come out. And the drivers will now make their way around and probably do some practice starts. And then we'll finish off this stream by just going through the fastest times of the day and the things to note. So, interesting session. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda bringing out the red flag in the last 10 minutes of that session, crashing at the final corner. So that finished his day. He finished in P6. But, yeah, interesting, I would say. A good session, a lot of learning for these drivers. The rookies getting their laps in. Unfortunately, Gabriel Bortoletto of Sauber wasn't able to participate in FP2 due to a leak that they found on his car after free practice 1. And they weren't able to sort it out in time. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to take part in this FP2 session. Oh, it looks like we got some Kimi Antonelli fans in the chat there. Shout out to you. Why don't we put Kimi Antonelli up on the screen here? Let's see. Well, first of all, I got to find him. And, oh, actually, Antonelli is not out on the track at the moment. Apologies to the Antonelli fans out there. We won't be able to see his live telemetry. Kimi Antonelli down in P11 on this track. So, let's get a look at some of the practice starts here. We got the live telemetry of Norris and Verstappen on there. So, we're going to take a look at how these two drivers get their practice starts. Norris on the medium tire, Verstappen on the soft. So currently they're in neutral. Verstappen fully engaged on the brakes. And there goes Verstappen on the launch. So very, very minimal revs actually on Verstappen's launch there as he gets going. And Lando Norris again launches as well. Good launch there from Norris. And Russell's the last one here. Let's see, Russell. I'm curious to see how much revs they give it off the start. He's currently idling, so let's see, about 9,000. So about 9,000 revs until he drops the clutch and lets it go. Very interesting to see, actually. We don't normally get to see this telemetry on the live feed, so I do enjoy watching those little intricacies of the practice starts. Russell was the final driver to get his practice start there, and the rest of the drivers will be coming in now that the session has completed. So that'll do it, guys, for free practice 2 at the Jeddah Corniche Circuit and here on the Backmarkers F1 show. We're going to be on for another couple of minutes here. We're just going to do the quick rundown of the best times today, and then we're going to sign off for this evening. So let's take a look at how free practice 2 panned out in Saudi Arabia. In the meantime, let me just maybe change the graphic here as drivers will be coming in. And of course, we won't need the driver tracker anymore. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the times then. So it's a McLaren 1-2 heading free practice 2 in Saudi Arabia. Lando Norris about a tenth and a half advantage over his teammate. Max Verstappen in P3 about 3/10 off the pace of the best McLaren. Charles Leclerc, the best Ferrari, in 4th. Carlos Sainz in the Williams, a very impressive time for him in P5, 6/10 off the pace. Yuki Tsunoda, who had that crash in the final 10 minutes of the session, he sits in 6th. George Russell in the Mercedes, a little bit further off the pace than they would have liked. He's in P7. Pierre Gasly for the Alpine in 8th. Nico Hülkenberg in a Sauber, a little bit of a surprise there, but a pleasant surprise if you're a Sauber fan, in 9th. And then rounding out the top 10, Alex Albon in the Williams. Kimi Antonelli, 11th for Mercedes. Hadjar in 12th. Lewis Hamilton down in a lonely 13th in the second Ferrari. Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls, 14th. Fernando Alonso, 15th. P16, Oliver Behrman. Then we've got Doohan, Stroll, Ocon, and of course the previously mentioned Bortoleto, who didn't take part in FP2, rounds out the top 20. Fastest speed trap of this session was actually Lewis Hamilton, 337 kilometers an hour in the speed trap. The driver with the most laps completed was Carlos Sainz, who did 24 laps. He did his laps mostly on the medium and the soft. And just interesting to note, guys, that Alex Albon was the only driver in this session to use that C3 hard tire. All other drivers either using the C4 or the C5, so the medium and the soft. So a lot of data to go through after this session, a lot to go through also on social media to dissect. We're really mostly interested, obviously, going to be in the long runs, but qualifying has shown to be extremely important so far in 2025. Every single driver that has qualified on pole has gone on to win the race. So tomorrow is going to be a big, big day. That does it for me for today here on the Backmarkers F1 show. I appreciate everybody that's watched along, even if you've watched for only a couple of minutes or for the whole hour. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for the support. I'm sure I will see you guys again soon on the next live stream, but stay tuned to the channel tomorrow following qualifying. I will be posting the analysis of the pole position lap within the hour of the completion of qualifying. So subscribe to the channel, enable notifications so you never miss a video. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Grace, it was good to see you again. Hope to see you again on the next live stream. The Antonelli fans out there, everybody else, I appreciate your viewership. Happy Good Friday to everybody. Happy Easter out there for everyone. I hope you have a good day and a good evening. I've been Chris Cato, host of the Backmarkers F1 show, and until next time, it's bye for now. Take care, everybody.